Hello and welcome to Bleeding Tree Gaming. My name's Amy, aka Warpfiend, and in this video I'm going to be talking about painting reflective steel non-metallic metal. So I'm back working through Shatterpoint minis, and today I'm painting up Jango Fett. I've been really enjoying the painting workout these models can be, and this one has its own particular challenge in that there's a lot of polished steel on his armour, perfect for a study in non-metallic metal and how it reflects light. So let's take a look. I'm going to skip painting the undersuit for now as I wasn't happy with the colour, so I end up coming back to it and changing it in a bit. Jango wears this blue-violet undersuit, and I initially lean too hard into the violet and just end up making it pink, so please ignore this for now. So jumping into the metal, I'm going to start by basing it in a mid-grey from which I can easily work up and down. For the darker areas I'm going to mix in black, and for the lighter parts I'll mix in an off-white, in this case a bright warm grey, which I feel's got a slight greenish tint to it. I'm going to start with his chest plate. I have this big flat irregular surface with a slight curve to it, so let's talk a bit about how NMM reflections work. On a flat rectangular panel you'll have some bands of dark and light. What these actually are reflections of objects being displayed. Now a polished steel isn't a fully reflective surface like a mirror, so these reflections aren't usually that detailed, but what you do see is some dark shadows that represent objects, people, etc. being reflected. The reason the objects pick up as dark is because they're actually blocking the light from hitting the surface. So technically the light areas are where the actual reflections are, because what we're seeing is the light illuminating the scene being fully reflected with nothing blocking it. Look closely at metallic objects around you and you will see this in action. So having thought about the way that light interacts with a flat panel, we need to think about how this applies to curved shapes. If you have a surface that curves upwards, for example, a figure standing on the ground reflected in this surface will usually appear like thicker at the bottom and taper off a bit towards the top, appearing in a roughly triangular shape. Meanwhile, if the upper curve of a facet faces downwards, you'll tend to see this inverted, i.e. an object will appear thicker at the top and taper off towards the bottom. Of course, light reflections are a complicated subject and I'm not a physicist, so please take my words with a grain of salt, but as an artist we look to replicate the complexities of the real world in simplified ways that feel authentic and allow the viewer's mind to fill in the rest. Anyway, time to move on to the piece. On the chest plate I basically want to create a zigzag spiky tooth effect with shadows and highlights. The dark teeth come up from the bottom and represent objects in the environment, maybe other people or furniture or whatever, that's blocking light from bouncing off the chest plate and tapering off near the top as the chest plate curves up. To make them look more natural, they shouldn't be perfectly regular and will show a little bit of variance when crossing the inset lines dividing the plate. Now just solely using this grayscale method is actually kinda tough to get these transitions right, and I'm going to be going back and forth with glazes for quite a while to get them perfect, but hopefully seeing how I've chosen the reflections will help you come up with your own. On panels like the legs that are largely cylindrical, I'm using a simple gradient of light and dark bands. On downward facing curves like the lower parts of the faceplate, I invert the dark triangles as I described earlier. On the top of the helmet I'm going to feature a lot of dark and light triangles reaching up towards the centre. Now this was a tough choice as I could also have chosen to light it as a ball with an off-centre point reflecting light that grows dimmer the further away you move from it, but instead I decided to focus on continuing those reflections upward onto the top of the head. I could have also chosen a combination with the shadows showing as they are now, but with a point of specular light reflection for added realism. But this method looked really quite nice and I didn't want to overcomplicate things for this video. So having spent a few hours off camera tidying up all those metal panels, you can see the final result is looking pretty good. Not perfect, but you can certainly look at it and see shiny metal. So let's have a quick look at the rest of the model. To fix up the pink undersuit, I'm going to mix some Vallejo Blue Violet 50-50 with some blue and paint the whole thing with it. I can then shade down the suit by mixing more of that blue and finally some black into the mix. I highlight up by mixing in first ice yellow and then that bright warm grey. Yellow is a great highlight colour for blue as it's roughly opposite it on the colour wheel and can really add to the colour interest. The blue details on the helmet, I'm just going to go to that Vallejo blue. As they're kind of shiny, I'm going to replicate the light patterns I've previously painted on the metal part of the helmet, shading down by mixing in black, and highlighting up by mixing in ice yellow. All the straps get based in Rhinox hide and highlighted up with orange browns and the classic sunny skin tone. Finally, I paint the cream coloured sections of the jetpack in standard bone colours, in this case skeleton bone from the Warpaint's Fanatic range. So that's the model about done. I really hope you found this tutorial interesting. I'm really enjoying talking in depth about the theory behind different painting styles lately, so I hope you find this information useful. It'd really help the channel if you could like this video and subscribe to Bleeding Tree Gaming. And don't forget, we have all the links down in the description to our Ko-fi, Element Games affiliate link, Facebook and Discord groups. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Amy, aka Warpfiend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!